Hey guys, and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you our curriculum choices for the 25 to 26 school year.
Hi!
I'm being helped here by Gabriel. So we're going to be taking a look through the curriculum guides, and then I'll be doing some in-depth videos on each of the subjects we'll be doing in another video. But if you're interested to find out our curriculum choice and what we're going to be diving into this year, then please join us. So this is the second grade curriculum manual for Memoria Press. In the link below, the description box below, I have a link so that you can compare the gradings on the Memoria Press site to the corresponding British school year. There are also several other, I believe, country links and comparisons within that table. So second grade is around about age 7 to 8, so that's about year 3 in the UK. My son is going into year 4 this year. He's going to be 9 in November. He does have global development delay, so the fact that we're at this point when he's been working about 2 years behind, if he were in a school play setting, that's where they'd probably put him. But saying that, we are waiting for an updated EdPsych report, so it'll be very interesting to see how he's come along and how he's developed. He's not just working in second grade this year, he's also working across third grade in his maths curriculum. But what I'm going to do is, because I want to keep these videos a little bit shorter, is I'm going to give you an overview of the curriculum manual, and then I am going to do an individual video for each of the subjects that we have discussed. So they'll just be 5-10 minute snapshots of what is in that curriculum. So for example, the Latin, the copy work, go more in depth in the recitation. And then if this is something that you're interested in stepping into, you can pick and choose what you'd like to go more in depth in. So as mentioned, so this is Memoria Press. Memoria Press does have an office here in the UK, but predominantly they work from their American office, but they do cater to a UK audience, with the exception of potentially history, which still has a very American focus, and they are looking to find individuals in the UK who can help them produce a British curriculum, a history curriculum. So we have to supplement that a little bit to make sure our children are learning here in the UK. And you'll notice some American themed elements in this manual, which are really easy to swap out. But let's step into it anyway. So Memoria Press offer a classical home ed curriculum. They also have several schools and cottage schools. So the setup of some of this is geared more towards a school setting. And so for me, this is my first year stepping into a program like this. We've historically used Ambleside. We've used the children's tradition. We've pulled together bits and pieces of curriculum. So this is my first year ever having a proper teacher's manual. And so I'm very aware that some of this may be more relevant for a school setting than for my home setting. And I just have to show discernment in that. So we step into the first page, and it gives you an overview of what should be in your curriculum box. Typically, you would get this in a big box with all the other pieces of curriculum. It is designed to be purchased in its entirety, but you can purchase this separately and then only pull out the pieces of curriculum that you wish to move forward with. So as you can see, we have gone with a full curriculum from Memoria Press. We've changed the math slightly because we're doing a level 3 and not a level 2 maths. And then because we are technically new users of Memoria Press this year, we have needed an add-on set. Although Gabriel has been working through the Rod and Staff second grade arithmetic book, he's also done the first grade enrichment, which I'll get into that in a minute. So we do have some understanding of this, how Memoria Press works. So this is what you'll get. You will be encouraged not to try and save this for future students, simply because this in itself is a home ed planner. If you didn't want anything else and this was all you're going with, you could just use this than having a separate planner. I do have a separate planner because we're adding different elements in, such as the geography. We're moving around with our arithmetic because we're not using the same arithmetic level. So we do have, I do have a second manual with, well, home ed planner, which you've seen in my first video. If not, please go and take a look at that. But yes, so we're going to be seeing how that works, taking some of the information from here and transferring it into another planner, but you could just go along with this. So it gives you some introductory notes, which I've read through them, and then I'm reading through them again now as I prepare for the school year. Because when I first read this, it was when I first purchased this back in May, I think it was. Now that I'm preparing for the school year, I'm rereading it and making additional notes. And because I've also done the Memoria Press conference as well, I have lots more thoughts and ideas in my head than I did before, because there was just so much wisdom from that conference that I have and teaching tips and tricks that I can now apply. Sometimes these things can be quite abstract when we first get them, especially if we've never stepped into this style of curriculum before, but the more we read it and the more we start to practice it, we're able to put the application into place. And so you just get your introduction. It gives you your getting started pages, so there's some teaching guidelines. Again, these are really useful, but also this is being taught in a school setting, and we're adapting it to a home ed setting. If you are struggling with this, you can email Carrie, who is the lady who supports the home educators. She's absolutely fantastic, and she will email you back a proper email with really in-depth, detailed help and support. I've had an experience of asking her a question, and she's just been phenomenal coming back to me. And Memoria Press have her dedicated to supporting us as home ed families. So we've got teaching guidelines. Their core parts of their curriculum, I'll just mention that, are the recitation, Latin and grammar, reading, memory, spelling. We've got math, literature and enrichment. This is not seen as part of the core curriculum. So your meat and potatoes, so to speak, are your math, your copywork, your cursive, your Latin, literature and enrichment, which is obviously poetry, art, music, history, culture, science, craft. They're not considered to be core curriculum in this grade. They are additions that you can step into. So that's not saying that they never become core, because particularly here in the UK, if you've got an experience in a mainstream setting, they would scream at you to hear, what? History, science is not part of the core curriculum. They have a very, very well laid out education path. The plan is to stay with Memoria Press and to follow it all the way through. And as you grow through each grade and step, they move into history more, they move into science more, they move into the culture more. And so we do here in the UK put a big focus on this being part of the core curriculum, because it is part of the core of what we do, and we would be asked how we're teaching this. So it is in there. But just to note that in this book, they will tell you this is optional. If you don't feel you can get to this, just make sure you're doing the core. And then we have Christian studies, which do form part of our core curriculum. Now, Memoria Press is a Christian company, and they have designed curriculum with Christians in mind. But there are lots of people who do Memoria Press and they are not Christian. There are elements of the Christian aspect that you can bypass. You can very successfully implement other elements of this curriculum without being a Christian. So please, if this is something that you're interested in stepping into, and you don't have a faith, or you're not Christian, then know that you can still benefit from just this amazing curriculum. You will have to adapt a little bit, and know that some of the books will have scripture references, but you can still benefit from the beauty of this, regardless of whether you are Christian or not. I will explain, as I said, other videos in depth on how we're using each one of these elements. I won't go into that now. So again, we've got literature and study, poetry study, music study, nature study, art study. So it gives you a really good overview of how you should be looking to teach those classes. It does have a recommended schedule. Again, this is for a school setting, and so your home setting may look very different. So this is a weekly spread. So it's numbered throughout the top, and this is a 34-week curriculum with a 5th week in maths testing, which you don't have to do. Some people don't do some of the testing. Some of them some families do just stick with completing the curriculum without all the addition. So but for us, we have a 38-week school year because we do work in line with the public holidays, the school public holidays, and so that means that we have about 4 grace weeks, which is just amazing because you will get sick, challenges will come your way, and so this gives us 4 weeks to be able to catch up and regain our footing if we need to. So excuse me. So it's set out recitation, Christian studies, spelling, Latin and grammar, reading, math, copy work, cursive literature, and enrichment. So this is the 2nd grade enrichment manual. Now, you can complete the curriculum just by reading this and by following the little instructions here. However, the 2nd grade enrichment manual offers you something really very special, I feel. Can feel a little bit overwhelming, but this is where you have to pick and choose what you're going to do. So it lays out the enrichment for you. So it'll tell you so you're going to read the book. Here is an overview, discuss the author and the illustrator before you read, teaching the children to look at the cover of the book. We're looking at vocabulary, which you can discuss with your children, and this can be done over the way. Ask them, what does frontier mean? What does unsettled mean? And even for you yourself, sometimes in a classical education, there are, and we're stepping into certain books, we're stepping into language which we don't always use in our everyday life. And we're expanding that vocabulary, and even we might need support sometimes. This terminology, promised land, if you're not a Christian and you hear this, what does that mean? And so it gives you some understanding of how what that wording means. Words like scatter, words like Indians. If you are here in the UK, you might think of that word Indian and associate that with the Indian people that you meet here who come from India. But we also know that in this particular instance, Indians are Native Americans, and there's a discussion there to talk about how they were once called Red Indians, and that is not culturally appropriate. They are native to the land. And get into those conversations with them. I know growing up, I loved learning about Native Americans. It was one of my favorite history lessons to do. I loved learning, going through The Little House on the Prairie and all those books. But this is a great way to open up conversations about how sometimes we will hear a word here in the UK, which means something's very different in another country. And we do live in a really diverse country, and so it's useful to know that that we may hear words sometimes that surprise us or shock us or that we don't understand, and teach our children to go to that place of, okay, could this mean something else? And so the vocabulary studies are great, I think, for building those skills. We've then got picture review and comprehension. So, I mean, if you're like me, you're looking at a picture, you might be new to a piece of art. Now, I would never think to have this many questions on a picture. I just wouldn't. Naturally, I would have some questions, but to draw out a child in all of these ways from a picture, just incredible. And again, we won't be doing all of these questions most likely, because I don't wish to overwhelm my son. It's already a very rigorous curriculum, but certainly as we're moving through and I have a look through this, I can pick out elements of these questions that are throughout the week that, you know, I know will really benefit my son and help him grow. We've then got what you could do after you read. We've got the language lesson. We've got teacher notes in here. And so each day we step into this, so history and culture. Then we step into week 2 and so forth, and it's laid out like so. And so there's some maps and there's some little bits in the back of this for you to explain certain things. For example, art movements, you know, where they came in. We've got the read aloud book list, which we also see in the back of here. That's all my little tabs here. So we've got our lesson plans. And then let's just step into the appendix here. So here in your appendix, you've got a list of things that you can use to enhance and to help your teaching for that year. You've got your daily prayers. Again, you can omit, alter them depending on what you would like to do. You have the weekly recitation. This is the Latin recitation that you've got. You've got phonic reviews from the previous years, which are really helpful to just go through to make sure your child is, you know, is understanding the basics before moving into something that's more in depth. You've got a good foundation to build on. President's Song. We don't really here in the UK need to teach our children the American presidents unless you'd really want to. You could swap that out for prime ministers or for kings and queens, whatever you think is more relevant, or just leave it all together. Here is the second grade recitation. I will do another video on this more in depth, explaining what the requirements are for this and how it should be done. But the weeks are set out here. Memory verse and Bible study. Again, I'll go into that in the Christian studies element. And then you've got your read aloud book lists, poetry lists, music and art selections, history and culture resources, and then they put it all into a handy little table like this, because if you don't have this book, you may still want to do all of these things and build your own little elements from that. And so it's all laid out in here. Supplemental phonics activities, got a number in here. Mathematics enrichments you can do each week. Again, not necessary. Review of the K and the first grade Bible verses. We're actually doing this currently in our morning devotional time. So this is something we're adapting in over the summer period because we haven't studied this. Although I will say we have covered most of these elements in our own Bible study as a family. So we're really recapping these. And then it's got some guides on addition, family, hundreds chart, spelling, challenge words. Manners of the week have been learned in previous grades. And I will show you the health studies that we're going to do and how we're going to be incorporating this. And so these are the two main curriculum guides that you will get. I believe that moving into the third grade, they still have one. I'm not sure if you're doing a higher grade than that, if they still come with a curriculum guide. But I do know that from kindergarten through to 3rd grade, they do have a curriculum guide for you. You would have to go and have a look on the Memoria Press website, which I'll link below, to see where they go in 4th grade. So there we go. So that's the overview of the curriculum manual that we're going to be using for the 25 to 26 school year. Please do subscribe, please like, and tune in to the next set of videos that come along, which will go into each of the elements more in depth.